This week, I am recording my 300th episode. Instead of having another guest, I wanted to zoom out because after 300 conversations, patterns start to show up. What we're going to talk about today is what was my early journey like? What were some of the things I've learned? And I'm going to pull up 8 guest lessons for you and then where we're going forward. So what was it like to start? It was scary. I didn't know what I was doing. It was concerning. It was that I was excited. I was talking to people I didn't really know, and I was reaching out to a lot of individuals. It was around that 2020 COVID just hit, and I just started talking to people. In probably 6 months, I interviewed 6 people, and the way I started was just by taking my phone out and going back and forth. And now we're in the studio. And originally when it started, we had we would do the Zoom and I would sit there next to the guest in person recording these and I would save them up and I would never post them because I didn't know. But what ended up happening was I started to build this confidence, started to build this swagger, started to understand who I was stepping into. And what I realized was commitment over clarity. You want to stay committed with something before it becomes clear because it can be so challenging for us. And the biggest surprise for me was the people I got to meet, the relationships I have now because of this. It became a magnet for people to get connected with me. I've talked to some of the biggest people in the world just through the podcast, and that's expanded my network drastically, which has given me an incredible opportunity. So that's something for me that's been such a big undertaking because what I realized is that the podcast isn't so much about recording the content. It's sharing and distilling it, yes. But what is it really? It's meeting people and seeing how I can help them and seeing how we can be of service together. So the biggest shift wasn't what I learned. It also became who I was becoming and who I was showing up as and how my speaking ability was improving through these experiences because you start to gain skill sets. So now I'm going to dive into the 8 guest lessons that I received from guests on the podcast. The first one is going to be from Jeff Hoffman. He's the co-founder of Priceline and Booking.com, and his quote and motto was speed beats perfection. I remember meeting Jeff originally. I reached out to him on Instagram, and what ended up happening was I wanted to do a podcast with him, but I wanted to meet him in person because I wanted to have that experience. So we ended up going to Orlando. I ended up renting a space. I brought a cameraman. I did this entire thing. And what I learned from Jeff is that speed beats perfection. Why? Because you don't have to have everything be perfect. A lot of times in life, we always think, I need this to be perfect. I need this to be great. I need it to be amazing. The truth is, you just got to take action. You got to get started and you got to get engaged. And as you do more speed, you will start to create better rules, better identity, better ways of showing up, and you'll start to understand yourself. I also remember Jeff coming and checking out my group coaching that I run. And he would follow up with me. He goes, when's the speaking engagement? When are we speaking? I'm like, Jeff, we scheduled it out 4 weeks later. And he's like, can we do it next week? And I'm like, you're Jeff, man. Of course. We'll make it happen. Because you start to realize that these people don't only give, that they want to give. They want to be in that service mindset. So if they find something, they want to capitalize it as quick as possible. The second lesson I learned was from Joe Foster, the founder of Reebok. And he talked about how legacy outlives hype. How many of us are living in a hype generation? How many of us are just excited for today and trying to find a new thing to be excited for tomorrow and the next day and the next day? What Joe Foster built with Reebok and his father built and what eventually came to be was this incredible organization where he found athletes, he helped athletes, and he was able to change culture because he focused more on legacy. He wasn't looking for the quick hit. He wasn't looking for the short-term payout. He was looking for the long-term. And Joe, he's an incredible guy too. He lives in London, travels around the world, and was in Florida, and he was able to go to lunch with him because I had this incredible experience where I got to meet him and his wife, Julie, and we had an amazing, amazing meal. And what we learned was that Reebok it didn't just happen. But during his process, he didn't feel he was trying his best. You know what I mean? He just kept giving his all and seeing what happened and focusing on the long term instead of the short term. How many of us right now are just focusing on short term and not giving ourselves enough long term space? I want you to think about that. When I'm doing this 300th podcast right now, this is building long term for me. This is something that's investing in my future self. The third lesson I had was from a guest, John Hewitt. He runs Loyalty Brands and he's an incredible guy. And his message was that it's not fun. If it's not fun, it won't last. And what I learned by that is that every time you do something, every time you're in business, every time you're looking at a new opportunity, it's got to be fun to you. We all have different definitions of fun. We all have different ideas of what fun looks like. And there's a lot of people in this world who do not practice fun. I try to practice fun as regularly as I can. And when I had John on, he talked about how he creates fun. And his version of fun is by doing business and getting bigger deals and changing people's lives. Because he's had over 4,000 franchisees in two different organizations, and he's done over 500 franchisees across 3 different organizations, which is just a testament to how impressive he is. And it's not that he's impressive, it's that he found it fun. He found it exciting to be there. He wanted to be there. Lesson 4 is going to be by Edward Pritchett. He's an incredible guy in the insurance space, and his was about systems beat motivation. And I can tell you this is true. For me, when I started podcasting, or when I started coaching, or when I started doing anything, as soon as I started putting in systems, that's what got me to consistency. So for the podcast, for example, what I ended up doing was I hired someone to clip up my videos, and I hired someone to release the videos and post them. Do you know what that made me do? I had to create my own videos. I had to be ready, so I couldn't post these videos 2 days before because my guy needed 4 days to do it. So you have to realize this, that when you start having systems in place, when you start having these people help you, employees, freelancers, etc., it forces an accountability. Whenever you join a coaching group, it forces an accountability. It raises your standard to where you want to be. It shows how you want to show up in the world. It starts to change the direction that you're thinking. And Edward put that out for me. Another huge lesson was from Mark Sherwood. Mark runs an incredible health clinic out in Oklahoma, I believe. And what he does is he helps people optimize their health through testing, through supplements, peptides, etc. And his quote was that health is performance. And what I realized there is that he was 66, he's in his 60s. When I heard that for the first time, I was in my 20s. And I recently just turned 30. And what he talked about is that health is performance. And it got me thinking, and it got me to realize that you have to be taking your health seriously. If you want to perform at a very high level, you have to be taking your sleeping seriously. You have to be taking your mindset seriously. You have to be taking the proper precautions. You got to be hydrating. You got to be in the right space. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to make the best decisions. And you can see when people are showing up well and when they're just struggling to get by. There's a difference. I just did a coaching call this morning, and people talked about how if you wake up late, then you're just behind for the entire day. If you wake up early, you got to take ownership of the day. So you want to realize these things, because if you can take your health and make it properly calculated, you will start to perform at a very high level. And I'll leave you with one tip. One tip that really helped me is trading in 2 hours at nighttime, 9 to 11 p.m. for 5 to 7 a.m. So I would start waking up earlier so that I wasn't in these ruts of I'm constantly behind. Lesson 6 is from David Price with the Price Group. He actually, I do coaching for their group, and it's incredible what he's built there. They did 14 million in their first year, which is amazing. And his was pressure reveals leaders. And I was actually talking about this morning, because when the pressure's on, how do you show up? How are you showing up when you have pressure? Are you acting differently? Are you acting the same way you would? Are you getting better, or are you getting worse? Does the pressure break you? Or are you really excited for what you want to do? So I want you to start to realize that the pressure is going to build leaders. And it's all about that idea of pressure building diamonds. It's all true. But you have to be able to step into that version of yourself so that you can have the confidence to do what you want to do. 7, Peter Swain. He's an AI expert. I've had him on the podcast several times, and his answer was that preparation creates confidence. So what that means is that we're not born confident. We are confident by doing what we say we're going to do, by following through, by doing the things we're supposed to be doing or that we deem correct to be doing. But when he talks about preparation, he made an AI mastermind, and it's absolutely incredible. And he talks about how if you're prepared, if you have the system set up, then you'll be confident in that moment. So for me right now, I'm confident talking to you on this because I prepared. I came up with what I was going to speak on, and now I'm sharing that with you. Because as we step into it, I also believe that as you do more reps, you build more confidence in who you want to be and how you want to show up. Lesson 8 is by Tad Nelson. He's a lawyer out of Texas, and he's doing incredible things. And his thing was independent thinking is power. And what he was talking about is nowadays we have so many news channels, so many news options, so many things around us that we start to realize that we're not thinking for ourselves. We're not formulating our own opinions. We're not formulating our own ideas. We're constantly chasing the ideas of those that have been shared upon us that we feel that have more conviction. So I want to ask you, audience, how do you create your own ideas? How do you create your own learnings? And how do you think about those ideas? And one of the best ways I do this is by learning something and then sharing that knowledge with somebody else. As a teacher, you are always the student. You are constantly learning, and you're constantly thinking of what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. The biggest thing that was a shocker to me wasn't how different the guests were. It's how similar they all were. All of them had the same ideas. I've had so many millionaires and billionaires and successful athletes, celebrities on these podcasts, on this platform, and they all have long-term thinking. They all are thinking in decades and 5 years and 10 years and some even 100 years. They're not worrying about the day-to-day. They do, but they have to take action. And then they definitely have personal responsibility. They take full accountability for everything they're going to do and everything they're going to work towards. And their big game is all about identity. They want their identity to be proper and refined before they hop into tactics. What that means is that if you don't believe in yourself and you don't think of yourself as a successful person in whatever industry you embark on, that's going to be a travesty. That's going to be a demise for you. So I want you to start stepping into who has that identity that I'm going to start to carry. For myself, it's that I am a podcaster, but it's also that I'm a high performance coach, but it's also that I'm a husband, but it's also that I'm a brother, I'm a son, and it's all of these things. And we all have different identities for different times in our life, but you have to know when to step into it and when to show up. And the last thing that a lot of them have is that they just stayed in the game long enough. Too many people quit too soon. Too many people are not following through to see the connections that they're actually building, which is horrible. So I want this to be a moment for you to find your connections, to find your ideas, to not give up. Remember that hosting this podcast didn't just build a platform, it built me. It built who I became. And I didn't know that when I started. But you don't become confident and then show up. You show up long enough and confidence catches up. That happens in everything, in new sales roles, in new businesses, in new everything that you're doing. You start to become confident as you take more and more action. So I want you to realize that this is episode 300. This isn't the end. It's proof that consistency compounds. And I want you to realize that you must stay in the game, you must have gratitude, and you must be able to reflect and see the changes that have occurred. See the growth that you've had. In the beginning, I didn't even know what I was doing. And now I'm on my 300th episode, and I couldn't be more grateful for it. So I want to take the time to thank you. And if you want to reach out to me, send me an email at jordan@edwards.consulting. That is it. And I want to hear what you thought about this. I want to hear how it impacted you and how it positively connected with you. So let's talk soon. Thank you.